Hey everyone, this is Jay, also known as jaynemesis from eToro, where I trade as a popular investor, and this is our weekly update for week 40 of 2018. Our top news this week, first of all, you're probably wondering what this is. I fell over. There's not really that much more to it than that. It wasn't fun. I spent about 6 hours in hospital. I'm fine. I've just got a bit of a headache. On to the more serious news for the week, and we have two pieces of news from eToro. So the first is that they have begun the rollout of their crypto wallet. To begin with, the crypto wallet will only support Bitcoin, Bitcoin Cash, Litecoin, and Ethereum, although they do plan on adding others. I would expect Dash is probably the next in line to be added because it's pretty similar to those core cryptos in terms of how it works. There's no complex functionality. We're probably going to have a pretty long wait for things like IOTA and EOS to find its way onto there. Even XRP, there aren't very many wallets actually that deal with XRP, and it's a very different system in terms of how it works to wallets such as Bitcoin, for example. So we've probably got a bit of a wait until you have access to all of your cryptos on there, but it's a good start, and they have delivered on what they said they would do. One of the more interesting things about this wallet is that you can only withdraw a maximum of what you have deposited through the traditional wire transfer or whatever for eToro. So I assume this is for money laundering reasons, but the way I understand it, and perhaps I've got this wrong, is that you can only actually transfer funds out of the wallet into, for example, a different wallet or a different exchange if that number is less than what you first deposited onto eToro, which means if you made any profit, tough luck, you can't move it out without doing it through the old traditional way of withdrawing from eToro. Another small but interesting thing that I noticed is that, first of all, the wallet is only available on mobile, and second of all, the wallet is called eToro X. And there is a domain, so you can go to etorox.com, and it basically just has like a splash screen saying the wallet is coming. But what's interesting, I think, is the fact that there's that X there. And traditionally, if you look around other products in the crypto space, the X or EX traditionally stands for exchange. So I have suspicions that they may actually be gearing this towards becoming an exchange in the long term, specifically for crypto, and that perhaps you will be able to directly convert between cryptocurrencies within the wallet itself, which would be pretty cool, actually. And a nice feature overall. In the same email that they announced all of this, eToro also announced that they are reducing spreads across all of their cryptos. So from what I've seen, every single spread is cut by at least 50%. Some are a bit higher than that, actually, and so there are some slightly bigger gains to be made, or savings to be made, I should be said. But this is really, really good news for me and for pretty much anyone that wants to actually trade cryptocurrency on eToro as opposed to just invest in it. It was very, very, very difficult. I'd say near impossible, in fact, to day trade some of the cryptocurrencies on eToro. Things like IOTA, for example, often had spreads of in excess of 6%, which is very, very high. Obviously, trying to get a 6% swing in just a day is, pretty unlikely, even in the world of cryptocurrencies. So this is hopefully going to make a pretty big impact on how I trade going forwards. This is effective immediately. Although I haven't actually opened any new positions since it became effective, but certainly there is now opportunity to do more swing trading and day trading, especially on Bitcoin, which now only has a 0.75% spread fee. That being said, I think more cuts are on the way in this department. I don't see how eToro can really compete with crypto exchanges directly without reducing these further. Because if you look at the likes of Binance or Bitfinex or Kraken, all of them have substantially lower spreads than even what eToro have cut down to now. So I think probably in maybe 6 months, maybe 18 months, we could see another cut come as they loosen up the wallet and actually start to focus more on more traditional crypto offering, I guess, and kind of lining up with how things work in the crypto world. The last piece of news this week is by far the biggest. It's made a big impact on the markets. It's been reported widely across a whole bunch of news websites, but it originated from Bloomberg. So there are allegations that the Chinese company Supermicro has been secretly inserting additional hardware, which includes processing power and memory, into motherboards, which have then been sold for data centers for the likes of Amazon and Apple, along with a whole host of other companies as well. So the chip itself is apparently less than the size of a grain of rice, which I can believe, because I would imagine it doesn't need that much power to just record bits of data. It's kind of interesting in a lot of ways that this is only coming out now, because apparently this took place several years ago. It's not really a big concern for Apple and Amazon and the other companies that may be affected, because from my experience, these companies have more than likely already stopped using these motherboards long ago. The hardware space moves very, very quickly, and I don't think they would be using a motherboard that's 3 years old at this point in time. But this, to me, seems pretty fishy, though. We haven't seen any actual evidence of this yet. At least I haven't been able to find any. And most of the news websites that were reporting this appeared to be just copy-pasting it off of Bloomberg for the most part, and not actually really doing any of their own research into what's happened. The share price of Supermicro, understandably, has dropped by around 50%. Amazon and Apple were also affected, even though they both came out with replies suggesting that this was basically fake and it hasn't taken place. I have some suspicions that this is actually part of a wider propaganda campaign from the West against China. We've already seen in the US some hate thrown China's way in terms of ZTE and government officials using phones from China. They've been kind of banging the drum on this issue for some time now, and of course we already have the trade war going on. To me, this seems like it could actually just be effectively a big lie spread by the West in order to try and push down the Chinese markets and perhaps push some of that industry back towards the US. I know it sounds very tinfoil hat. I'm not convinced that is the case, but I certainly haven't seen any evidence yet. And I find it very, very weird that almost a week after this news broke, we still haven't seen the evidence of this. These motherboards are surely everywhere, and yet I have not seen anyone actually find it and show me the chip physically in a video on this motherboard. So I'm still pretty skeptical about this at the moment, and I'm thinking actually that this could be a reasonable opportunity to get in on something like Supermicro in a really small position. I wouldn't suggest that quite yet, because obviously if this turns out to be true, then that company is in big, big trouble. And obviously I wouldn't put it past China to do something like this either, but it just seems a bit fishy at the moment. Onto the trading stats, we have a portfolio change of minus 5.13%, a really, really big shift down this week. This is primarily actually due to the stock markets, I think partially as a result of this Chinese situation that has been unfolding. Realized profit of plus 0.35%, so we actually closed in the green. 28 positions were closed in total, 22 were profitable, 6 were unprofitable, and most traded asset this week was AMD. Onto the cryptos, one trade this week in EOS for 10% profit. This was one of the positions that was actually reopened by eToro, but I closed it anyway at 10% profit. This is pretty much because I'm just more in the mindset of trying to reduce crypto exposure slightly, and increase exposure to other asset classes a little bit more, and actually go for more of a 60-30 kind of split in my portfolio overall instead of a 50-50 split. This is something that I discussed a few weeks ago. Next up, Bitcoin Cash. So I had one short here that I closed for 1.4% profit. I know that's not a big profit, but it is still a profit, I guess. This is actually because it looks more likely to me that the crypto market will break to the upside rather than to the downside. And I already have another short open on Bitcoin Cash anyway, so I do still have some exposure to the short side. But I just feel like as we're getting closer and closer to this pinch point on Bitcoin's chart especially, that I would rather kind of move out of this short position and just take that profit. Stocks, so AMD, again, a lot of trades this week, 10 trades in total, 5 of them were profitable, 5 were unprofitable. The losses were actually pretty poor here. These were mainly from short positions that I was closing out to switch for long positions right at the start of the week before everything kind of unfolded. And I was sitting at a pretty hefty loss on a few of these positions because a lot of them were with leverage. So I closed some out at as high as minus 35%, which obviously is not great. The trades that I did close that were on the plus side were ranging between 1% and 6% profit. I also closed one trade on Etsy for 0.3% profit. This was actually a pretty long hold time, so it's more a case of just refreshing the position. And I figured I may as well do that while it's in the profit. Square was the big winner of the week. I closed out a lot of the longer term positions that we had open in Square, some that had been open for well over a month. So we got some 22.3%, an 18.3%, and a 34.3% profit, along with a 2.2% profit as well. So some really nice, healthy profits from Square. Intel, there was a short position that I opened a while ago. This was pretty much in line with the AMD positions, and this was because of the problems that they had with their supply chain and a few other things. And of course, my general feeling that AMD is really, really hitting Intel very, very hard right now, and it's hard for Intel to compete. Unfortunately, the day that I did that, Intel actually released a statement suggesting that their supply chain issues had been fixed, and that it wasn't all looking quite so bad. So on that news, I decided that now maybe wasn't the right time to be shorting and that I needed to wait a little bit longer. So unfortunately, I closed that for a 7.5% loss. SolarEdge, in almost a carbon copy of the trade that I've done, I think 3 times now. Every time it drops below $40, especially below like $39 or $38, I see a nice opportunity to trade that to the upside. SolarEdge is really, really stubborn about moving below that level. So I opened a 2x leverage position and converted it for 8.7% profit in a pretty short time frame. So I'm quite happy with that. Netflix closed a legacy position here, so one of the positions that have been open for a pretty long time on the stock for 5.4% profit, and I also closed out a week-long trade for 2.5% profit. Likewise on Wix, again 6.6% profit on another position that had been open in Wix for a reasonably long time. So again, kind of just refreshing that and making sure that my newer copiers are getting exposure to that. For Take-Two, I also closed one position for a 0.4% profit. I'm actually holding on to one other position because I'm pretty hyped about the latest title that they are due to release, which is Red Dead Redemption 2. It looks like it's going to be really, really strong. It's coming out on PlayStation pretty soon. So I think that this is going to be some really good sales for them as we head towards Christmas. They've just released a bunch of like new trailers and gameplay footage and things like that for it, and it does genuinely look like a very good game. In fact, I might even get it myself, and that's coming from someone who never plays single-player games. Nvidia, sticking to the theme of gaming, Nvidia, three trades closed. We actually don't have any exposure to Nvidia anymore at the moment. I will be, of course, rebuilding that at some point pretty soon. 3.2% profit, 3% profit, and a 4.5% profit. Not too bad, I don't think. I do think that Nvidia is going to have a tough couple of quarters. They should still grow, but I think that there's probably better opportunities in something like AMD for further growth. Amazon is another one. So again, I've started trading Amazon a bit more actively recently, especially when it drops below that $2,000 point that it recently surpassed for the first time. So 2.7% profit. There's not too much to say about that really. Again, it was a pretty short-term trade, so I'm quite happy with that. Finally, last of all, we have Activision. So 0.8% profit. I did talk quite a bit about their latest Call of Duty Blackout game mode and how I think that there's a lot of potential for them to take that market on console. But if I'm being honest with myself, I just don't have the confidence to hold this long term right now. I don't think that really the gains are likely to be there for a while. It's going to take quite a long time to prove whether or not they are actually building a big sustainable audience for that game mode, and until they do that, I just think it's a slightly risky position to take. So I'm still overall pretty happy with the direction that Activision Blizzard is going, but I just don't think it's really in a position that's worth holding on to at the moment. I think there's better options out there. So if we take a look at our performance, you can see that the portfolio change side of things is looking much more green than it has done for a while. That being said, of course, October, we are off to a pretty bad start with week 40 and October obviously at the same percentage because they started at the same time, minus 5.13%. That's really not a great start to a month at all. For some reason, I seem to just be cursed at the start of every month now. Maybe I should just close all of my positions at the start of every month and reopen them midway through, because I seem to do pretty well towards the tail end of the month and pretty badly at the start of the month recently. I think that's obviously just a bit of a fluke, really. Obviously, I don't actually think that there's some days that are just better than others. But certainly, it is frustrating to see that, because I was really hoping to get a nice start to October. And the cryptos are actually looking pretty okay at the moment as well. We'll talk about that a little bit more later. But the stock market stuff really did catch me off guard. I have a lot of 2x leverage positions open in things like Etsy, Wix, Square. All of the stocks that I've been doing really well on recently, I decided to kind of get a bit more greedy on how I'm trading it and actually start using 2x leverage a bit more. But obviously that does come with some risks, and when the market goes down, it hurts us that little bit extra. On the other side, on the plus side, we did actually have a realized profit for October. So although the portfolio is swinging pretty wildly at the moment, we did close out in a profit for week 40. I hope to repeat the same again this week. I actually think that we're going to have a really, really quiet week for trading this week, because I just don't have many funds to really work with, and I also don't really want to be closing too many positions when the market is like this. So I plan on pretty much just waiting it out and effectively hodling with my stocks for the first time possibly ever. So we'll see how it goes. I think that the market should rebound off the 200 moving average for the NASDAQ. You can take a look at the 4-hour chart and you'll see that actually today that's pretty much where we did bounce off of. So I'm hoping that that holds, and if it does, then happy days, and we can continue to kind of build on where we are, and hopefully the earnings season, which is approaching, can turn things around a bit for us. So looking ahead, I just mentioned earnings, and earnings season is finally here. I actually really enjoy earnings season. I moan quite a bit when it's taking place, because there's just so many earnings calls that I want to listen to and so many reports that I just kind of want to look at, and my head just gets filled with numbers and everything's confusing. But it's really, really exciting to kind of see the direction the companies are going in, and if I have kind of correctly predicted the paths that they're taking. So the first big one is Netflix. We also then have the following week Twitter, Shopify, Google, and Intel. There's still a lot of companies that haven't announced yet, so obviously stay tuned. There could be a few more before we head into November, but the bulk of them will actually fall in November, I think, this year. Finally, I mentioned earlier, cryptocurrency is looking a bit more bullish. I don't want to call it yet, but it does look like I've actually got the chart open right now on a daily chart, and we are sitting right on that down bearish trend line. We have done this a few times in the past, and every time we've done it in the past, we've actually seen a big drop off and we've fallen further down and retested those lows of around $5,500. This time, we don't have very much further to fall, so I do think that it's pretty likely that we could break out of this to the upside. The sentiment seems to be changing in crypto. I think we've kind of run out of short sellers. We've got ETF stuff coming up again soon. So there's quite a lot to be bullish about. The backed stuff obviously is a pretty big deal as well. We've got even exchanges like eToro itself, which are kind of maturing and adding more features and things like that. Ripple obviously had that nice big pump recently. EOS likewise has been pretty stubborn about moving anywhere below $5. So I think we could well actually see the markets turn around and actually leave this bear market behind potentially. That being said, I don't want to kind of brainwash you guys. Nothing is certain. I don't have a crystal ball that just says yes or no. Everything is like a percentage chance of what's likely to happen, and there is still a reasonable chance that we could fall lower. And I think that if we do fall lower and we don't manage to break out this time, that's a big deal, and that we're likely to actually find new lows at perhaps $4,000 or so on Bitcoin. Likewise, I think most other altcoins should be following Bitcoin down again. Thanks for watching, everyone. That basically does it from me. Sorry if I was a little bit emotionless this video. I do have this horrific injury up here that I only have myself to blame for, unfortunately. If you enjoyed this video, please follow me on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and eToro. I know that this is a really, really difficult time. We were just starting to pick up on our trading performance, and things have kind of slowed down a bit, but stick with it. Hopefully 2019 will be the year for us, and who knows, maybe this earnings season can turn things around. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.